Gators, and sports fans. Get all your Gator talk, news, analysis, and opinions on the Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform or watch us on Facebook Live between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. every weekday. Pod Up, because we are Gator fans. So say it's great to be a Florida Gator.
Good morning and welcome to a Monday edition of Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Hope everyone had a great weekend. Lots of stuff to watch on TV, some great sports, no doubt about it. We got a good show for you today. This Monday, we're going from college sports today. A college football analyst over in Jacksonville, Heisman Trophy voter, not a winner. I called him a winner several times, but he's just a voter. And then the second portion of the show, we're going to be joined by former Gator wide receiver David Nelson. But let's jump to the Titan Tomorrow hotline, and we're joined by a good friend, Brent Beaird. Good morning, Brent. How are you?
Guys, I'm doing well. It's frankly exciting to be able to talk about what is going on the field right now, much more than it is off the field.
No doubt about it. I believe the AP is going to release their top 25 poll today at some point. I tried to do my top 10 with all the teams, the Big Ten and the Pac-12 not playing, Brent. I got a lot of SEC schools in my top 10.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, when this comes out, there are going to be some puzzled looks from people when they read it, but the vote was taken before the Big Ten and Pac-12 decided to get their marbles and go home. So don't be surprised if Ohio State's the number one team in the AP poll.
Yeah, that's interesting. So tell us what the latest is. Is there any chance the Big Ten plays at all? I know on Friday, a lot of parents from the Big Ten went to the league office up in Chicago. Are they still shut down until the so-called spring, which I don't think they're going to play football in the spring either.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they are either. I think the latest embarrassment for them really comes from the Omaha World Leader. Nebraska's AD, Bill Moose, basically said that the athletic directors in the Big Ten really were all on board to play. But when Kevin Warren and the presidents got together, the ADs weren't, at that point, what we understand, represented. They weren't in some of the meetings, which is just flabbergasting when you think about it. The other thing that needs to be noted here is the Big Ten also had 7 relatively new presidents to go along with a new commissioner. That is not a combination for anything good to happen here. So, and I'm glad the parents got together. It was a small group, but that should not be held against them. It's hard for folks to travel in a short period of time, but I think they were at least able to get their point across. I'm not sure anyone in the upper echelon of the Big Ten was paying any attention. Guys, frankly, the truth of the matter is, again, they had no intention of playing this fall. They really made up their mind probably in April or May. And again, it wasn't just COVID. They were frightened of the liability issue. They were also frightened of a quasi-labor union. So when you put all that together, that's a reason that they made their decision, I think, more than COVID. But again, at least give your schools and your personnel and your doctors, your trainers, and all the technology they've got, an opportunity to at least get started in camp toward the goal of playing. They did not even do that for their schools, and they will pay dearly over the next few months because they didn't.
Yeah, I mentioned this last week, Brent, on my show. I saw an interview with Urban Meyer, and I can't remember who it was with, but he said with the Big Ten not playing football this year, the term he used was it was catastrophic for the Big Ten.
Yes.
From a financial standpoint, but also from recruiting and just the future of the Big Ten. Because there's a lot of people, wanting, our kids going to go into the transfer portal. I don't know how many kids in the Big Ten or the Pac-12 have entered the transfer portal. There's really nowhere for them to go right now because the SEC, the ACC schools, and the Big 12 schools, you're at your 85 scholarship allotment. Have you heard a lot of these kids what they're going to do for their future?
It's still up in the air. Now, for one thing, people may be asking, well, didn't everybody get a free waiver? No, that is going to happen, but it's not happened yet. That's still something. And in fairness to the NCAA, they've had so much on their plate. They haven't been able to deal with that, and they said they would put it on the shelf, but they would vote on it, and I think it will come through next year. But at this point, frankly, Shane, they're just in limbo, which is the unfortunate thing about all this. And look, the commissioner, Kevin Warren, said that they would not go back and relook at this and this decision, which again is a big mistake in so many ways. But you're right, and believe me, it is already hurting the Big Ten and the Pac-12 because you've got recruits who are saying, well, I'm going somewhere where they're playing football, and that's the mentality of a lot of these kids.
Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing to me that the state of Ohio, who loves their football, they're going to be sitting at home watching the Bengals, the Browns, the Cincinnati Bearcats, and every high school team in the state play football, but no Ohio State Buckeye football this year. Crazy stuff. Brent, so the NCAA, this was very interesting to me. Every kid this year gets another year of eligibility, correct?
Yes. Yes. So basically, we're not saying that he's going to, but let's just say Trevor Lawrence of Clemson wanted to yet hang on for a while and play another year. That will be allowed. I think this is a good move. Frankly, the NCAA Board of Directors approved a blanket waiver allowing all fall sports athletes to retain a year of eligibility. So that is important. In other words, so in theory, Trevor Lawrence could play the entire 10-game season as a junior without it counting against his 5 years of total eligibility. So, and frankly, Shane, there are going to be some players who will be able to take advantage of this and may end up being stars in a couple of years because of it, because they had the extra time in order to do it. That's a good move by the NCAA. It's unprecedented times, and the players need some, I think some leverage. I think they need just some flexibility with this, and they gave it to them.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, for Gator fans, that means Kyle Trask can come back next year if he chooses.
That's right. Absolutely.
And what's crazy is, all these true freshmen can play an entire 10-game season and maybe longer.
Yeah.
It doesn't even count.
That's right. Yeah. Now, I'm sure the stats will count, but in theory, what you're saying is exactly right. That will not be held against them. So basically, they had just really introduced if you're a freshman, you can play 4 games, and you're not going to lose that redshirt freshman year, or at least it's not going to be counted against you as far as losing it. So that's a tremendous point when you think about that.
Yeah, and think about Sam Howell, the quarterback at North Carolina. He had a phenomenal year last year. I think he threw for almost close to 4,000 or 5,000 yards, like 30-something touchdowns. And he could do that again this year. And it counted for his stats, but not against his eligibility. That guy could end up breaking all those Hawaii quarterbacks' records for it all said and done. And I guess also, Brent, so, to go to the NFL draft or declare for the draft, you have to be in school for 3 years. That's not going to change even if you play this year, right?
I doubt it. I think the NFL will probably stay with that rule. I haven't heard anything about that changing. Frankly, like the NFL or not, they will pretty well stay with their own timetable with a lot of this. And I still say the best thing the NFL did was when Roger Goodell came out and said, guys, regardless of what goes on this year, we're going to be safe, but we're playing, period. And when you set that mindset in the beginning, that was a major benchmark for them, and they've never wavered from that, Shane.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Refresh your vehicle and your brand with a vehicle wrap from WrapSpot. August is your lucky month at WrapSpot. Mention promo code Shane and receive 13% off your vehicle wrap. We're speaking with our good friend Brent Beaird. You can follow him on Twitter at Brent Beaird. Brent, SEC announced, and I was aware of this on a family call, Zoom call or whatever, that the SEC is going to be testing about 3 times a week now. So that's why I have been saying those dudes that are playing on Saturdays that you're watching, whether you're in person watching them or on TV watching, whoever is playing in a football game on Saturday in the SEC does not have the virus and will not get it.
Right. Well, I think that's huge, frankly, because they had previously announced that it was going to be 2 tests per week. Now it's going to be 3. So, and look, they've got people asking how can they do that? Well, they've obviously got the money to do it, although it's going to cost them a lot of money to be able to do these tests, but they know they're worth it to be able to do so. And Shane, look, this is something you can tell your parents. We're going to test 3 times a week, and don't ever forget this for our listeners. This is a recruiting tool. That's not the reason the rule is put in there, but coaches would be able to utilize it by telling these parents of recruits and the recruits, you come play for my school, that this is our rule that we test 3 times a week, so we're going to be ultra safe. So believe me, that will come up in conversation, right, Shane?
No doubt. That's why it just means more down here in the SEC. It just means more.
That's right.
Brent, majority of the SEC schools have come out and said what the capacity for games are going to be. I've yet to hear what Florida is going to do, but majority of the SECs are anywhere between the 20 and 25%. Have you heard what Florida is going to do? And my second question, how are they going to decide who's going into the game to watch?
Yeah, that's a great question. I know that Greg Byrne from Alabama sent out a letter a few days ago, and I'm just using this as an example that what basically I think is going to happen, and Bama's in that 20%, for their fan base, they'll be able to get, I think it's a package of either, one package is 2 games, and there's another package maybe 3 games. So basically on average, you're probably going to, if you're a fan, you're probably going to get tickets to, let's say conservatively, 2 games. And that's basically what it's going to be, because they're trying to spread the wealth around and give everybody at least a chance that they can say that they've gone to a game or 2 this season. So, and I'm sure what they'll do in those ticket packages, that they'll have a premier game for one, and then they'll have a, shall we say, not so premier game for the other game. But I would hate to be the guy in the ticket office trying to figure this out and how to make it fair. It's going to be tough, but we still may see before the end of the year or even for the beginning of the season, Shane, some schools just say, guys, we're sorry, we'll give you a refund unless you want to make a donation, but we're going to play it ultra safe and not have fans in the stadium this year.
Yeah, we got a Facebook Live question here for you, Brent, brought to you by Meldon Law, where you matter most. Evan wants to know, what's the probability Kyle Trask wins the Heisman Trophy?
Oh, I think as a Heisman Trophy voter, I think if he has a good year as we think he could, I could certainly see him going to New York and being a part of the finalist. I mean, look, when you're in the SEC, it's a big stage, even bigger this year with a limited amount of conferences. Let's say Florida wins their division, at least even goes to the SEC championship game, and the spotlight that's on him there. So I think Kyle's got a real chance in order to do that. Now, it's interesting, and I get this, that the Richardson kid, Emory Jones, that they're getting a lot of press at this point from the writers, and I get that. But look, I love Trask, and really have for several years, and glad he's got his chance and be able to take advantage of it. So, Shane, you understand progression from one year to the next. If he improves this year as much or more as he did last year, I think the sky's the limit for Trask.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, because a lot of people say, whoever wins the national title this year is going to have a so-called asterisk beside it. It'll be interesting, whoever wins the Heisman Trophy, will there be an asterisk, so-called asterisk beside it, with the other major conferences not playing. Brent, let's jump around the SEC a little bit. Tuscaloosa. So Mac Jones has a youngster chomping at the bit to take his playing time, huh?
Bryce Young is a freshman that's coming from California that they really like. He's got a strong arm. We're not going to say he's Tua by any stretch, but he did grow an inch and add 9 pounds, so he's up to 214. But Mac Jones has had a really good camp so far too, so they're excited about what he has done. Paul Tyson, who is the grandson of Paul Bear Bryant, the former Bama coach, has also added weight, and understand he's got the strongest arm on the team. So that will be interesting. Bama's got some good depth at wide receiver. Jalen Waddle is going to be a star. Really came on at the end of the year, so I think they will use him and Devonta Smith and a host of others. Shea Bolden's going to be another guy that they really like. So they think the offense will be very good again, as they do like Mac Jones and the returning offensive line. But the group that needs to improve is the defense. Shane, that's the group to really keep your eye on. Dylan Moses goes back at linebacker, and that will be huge.
Auburn, Chad Morris is now the offensive coordinator for Gus Malzahn. I still have not figured out, that's the reason Gus got the head job is, his play calling, and at times it can be shaky. But Chad Morris has come in now. What are you hearing from an offensive standpoint of what Auburn's doing?
Well, they've had a scrimmage, and again, it's hard to get much out of Gus Malzahn after a scrimmage, but he did say the tight ends caught 4 or 5 passes. Chad Morris likes to throw to the tight end, so that's something I think that you can look at. The big question is, again, he has said that Chad Morris will call the plays. I think all of us will have to see that to believe it, frankly, at least for any length of time. Auburn's had 3 players who have opted out. Josh Marsh, a redshirt sophomore linebacker, is the most recent one, along with fellow linebacker Chandler Wooten and defensive back Trayvon Leonard. So that, will certainly hurt depth a little bit along that line. But that's one of the big differences so far with Chad Morris, I think, is being able to spread the ball around to the tight ends.
And in Gainesville, you mentioned a little bit about the quarterback, how Emory will still get his playing time. What else is going on in camp for the Gators?
Well, I think that's going to be exciting just to be able to see what he is. He's just going to give them a different look. It's like you bring a different pitcher out of the bullpen. Trevion Grimes coming back, I thought was huge. Zach Carter, too, glad to be able to see that. Brenton Cox, Dan Mullins talked about him a little bit, the Georgia transfer. That will be interesting to see once he gets in where they go. But, so far, and again, we're all limited to what we can see and hear, but I think there continues to be a lot of optimism at Florida, and deservedly so.
Georgia, obviously the team that Florida needs to beat this year. Any new news coming out of there, and especially at the quarterback position? Is this Jamie Newman's team?
I think they've got the thing that's interesting about them, Shane, right now is the number of injuries that they have got, which is something that people need to keep an eye on as far as the quarterbacks are concerned. I know JT Daniels, that came over from Southern Cal, he hasn't been cleared yet. And again, it's early. We've still got plenty of time for that to happen. So that I think they've got some concern where that is. They've still even got at this point some of their wide receivers. Dominic Blaylock, who tore his ACL in the SEC championship game, he's not ready yet. Jamie Newman is a guy that everyone is interested in. And I tell you what, Google some pictures of Newman in practice. He really is a very muscular kid and a real tremendous athlete, but he has a mid-foot sprain that they're trying to work on and get him healthy too. So some Georgia players banged up, but as we said, they've still got plenty of time to come around.
Up in Oxford, obviously Florida's first opponent of the year, Lane Kiffin continues to do a pretty good job recruiting.
He does, and I think that will only get better. DeMarcus Smith, who is a defensive end, he's a 3-star, has committed to Ole Miss. The big thing they've got to do, Shane, and I'm sure you've seen this over the last few years, they've really got to rebuild their defense. Now, people wondered what happened to DJ Durkin. He's at Ole Miss. They've got coordinators and DJ Durkin and also Chris Patridge there. So, and they're looking at the scheme a little bit differently and trying to rebuild that side of the ball, which is going to be very smart for them. Matt Corral, who obviously committed to Florida years ago, and the Plumlee kid, that's going to be, I'm guessing that's probably caught your attention, Shane. That's going to be a very interesting quarterback battle, is it not?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm anxious to see what happens up there. I think Lane does a tremendous job with quarterbacks, and, we'll see how it all plays out. What's interesting to me, Brent, South Carolina, they signed last year a 4 or 5-star quarterback. They just recently got another commitment from a 5-star quarterback. How's Will Muschamp pulling in all these 5-star quarterbacks?
I'm a little surprised about that, too. And Gunnar Stockton is the latest one. He's 2022 signee, but he chose South Carolina over Georgia at that point. He is a 5-star, has a baseball background, also a very strong arm to go along with that. So I'm with you. I was very intrigued to see that happening. But listen, that was probably the best news of the week. The worst news of the week by far, they've got a freshman running back, Marshawn Lloyd, who tore his ACL last Wednesday, so he's out for the year. I mean, let's be honest, they don't have a lot of playmakers, and they were hoping this Lloyd kid could really be one of those, and he's not. Now, they've also had a redshirt freshman wide receiver, Tyquan Johnson, who is no longer a part of the team. He is out, but they're playing Luke Doty, D-O-T-Y, at quarterback and receiver during camp. This is a time to experiment a little bit. So that's what they're doing. So it's kind of a mixed bag of information if you're a Gamecock fan.
Yep. Give us a couple of nuggets before we take our first time out to pay some bills here, Brent. Give us a few nuggets you got.
Tennessee is still trying to get Cade Mays eligible, who transferred from Georgia. This is a convoluted situation here. Cade's father is suing Georgia in a lawsuit because he got his finger almost amputated, basically from a situation in a chair. It was kind of a bizarre situation. I don't know how cooperative Georgia has been in this transfer either. Of course, they didn't want him to leave, so Tennessee's trying to still get that straighten out as it goes along. Trey Smith, the offensive lineman, maybe the best in the league, is playing this year. As you know, he's got the blood clots in his lungs, but he's doing better. At Texas A&M, Jimbo Fisher is comfortable with their offensive line. They've got 4 seniors and a sophomore, so that's a pretty good group to work with this year too. And a lot of people expecting A&M, Shane, to make that leap going toward really challenging Alabama for the divisional title.
Yes, they are. So we shall see. Brent, great stuff as always, my man. Stay safe. We'll talk to you in a week or so, see what else is happening. But college football is right around the corner, and we appreciate you joining the program.
You can't wait, Shane. Always enjoy it, friend. Take care.
That's Brent Beaird. Join us on the Titan More Hotline. You can follow him at Brent Beaird on Twitter. At Center State Bank, we put business first. We are the largest community bank in the state of Florida and understand that small businesses need a community business partner that they can rely on. Center State has 5 convenient Alachua County locations to serve you better. Center State Bank, member FDIC. You're going to take our first time out here. When we come back, we're going to be joined by former Gator receiver David Nelson. You're watching and listening to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back.
Hey Gators, this is Coach Steve Spurrier. Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Area Rug Masters, your #1 choice in Gainesville for all your area rug cleaning services. Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, The Digital Mortgage Guy, Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Center State Bank, Gator Bait Media, Davis Gainesville Chevrolet, Miapa Latin Cafe, Gators Dockside, Okido America Martial Arts and After School, Doreen Weeby Realtor, Caldwell Banker MM Parish, Radware, Style Cuts, Wrap Spot, Ironwood Golf Course, TB Financial, Chris Doring Mortgage, Meadowbrook Golf Course, Darshakow Insurance, Pomodoro Cafe, MB Listings, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, Cornerstone Financial Group, McDonald's of Gainesville, My IT Master, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Chick-fil-A on Archer Road, Aver and Smith, Personal Injury Attorneys, Orange Theory Fitness, and Gainesville Neon and Signs. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, potupwithshane.com, and click the Advertise button or call Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. It's a Monday edition. Hope you had a great weekend. I want to thank Brent Beaird for joining us on the Titan MR Hotline. Now we're going to jump back to the Titan MR Hotline, and we're joined by former Gator receiver David Nelson. Good morning, David. How are you, my man?
Man, I'm doing well. It was a tough weekend hearing that the swamp closed down. It wasn't the best news that I wanted to start my week off with.
Yeah, it's amazing. You know, what's funny is I know so many people have memories of the swamp for whatever reason. You know, the swamp wasn't there when I was in school. They
really,
it was like a coffee shop called Chaucer's. And then I want to say the swamp was not built, but somebody bought it and called it the swamp and made it what it is. I think in 1994. I left in 92. So I missed that on all, obviously I've been there as a guy out of college, but I missed the college days at the swamp, but I know a lot of people have a lot of memories there.
I have a lot of special memories. I mean, that's where I watched the 08 basketball national championship game. I think both of them. I think I watched it there, and it's difficult because I haven't been back to Gainesville in a couple of years, and so I was hoping to be able to bring my wife and bring my kids and be able to show them, the original swamp, but then also the Swamp restaurant right across the street where I have so many great memories. But hey, they can never take away those memories, right?
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Well, David, let's start back. You grew up in the state of Texas, tremendous football player out there. I guess, I'm an out-of-state guy as well. What schools were you looking at, and what made you choose the University of Florida?
Well, I committed to Notre Dame. Tyrone Willingham was still the head coach up there, and growing up in Texas, having Notre Dame on the NBC network every weekend, I was very familiar with them, and really fell in love with the campus there. Really fell in love with the coaching staff, and it really kind of worked out perfectly. Into my senior year, Tyrone unfortunately was fired, and they wouldn't hire Charlie Weiss as the new head coach, and my family wasn't very comfortable with sending me all the way up there into an unknown place with a coach that they didn't really know. And, because it was so late in the recruiting process, they just really couldn't get a good feel for him and get a feel for what he's wanting to do with that program. And so we opened up our recruiting again. And it was around the same time that Urban was leaving Utah, was moving over to Florida, and he had the excitement and the buzz. He was this young new coach, innovative offensive scheme. He come with guys like Alex Smith, and those guys had done some tremendous things with some guys who weren't necessarily the most talented guys and were kind of overlooked. And I just remember when he signed at Florida, I had never had any recruiting offers from Florida. Coach Zook never recruited me. I didn't have many offers from the SEC, primarily Pac-12, Big 10, Big 12, more so in the Texas area. And when he decided to go over to Florida, 'cause he was recruiting me at Utah, and I never wanted to go to Utah. I just never really was high on my list. And when he ended up offering me over to Florida, I kind of took it seriously. And when he moved over, it was kind of like, okay, well, maybe Utah didn't work out, but maybe this Florida thing could work out a little better. And I started taking different offers and went to Texas, went to UCLA, went to Oklahoma State. But for whatever reason, when I went to Florida, and again, it wasn't on my radar. It wasn't something I was looking for. I honestly wasn't a Florida fan. I actually grew up more of a Florida State fan. But that's just because of my own ignorance. That's because just growing up in Texas, just didn't have a chance to really get a chance to see SEC football a whole lot. But man, when I went there, I just fell in love with the campus. I fell in love with the people there. I fell in love with the students, with the faculty. Really bought into what Coach Meyer was doing, and wanted to be a part of something special. Wanted to be part of building something from the ground up. And just so much energy, so much excitement was just surrounding that program when he was moving in there. And I remember just looking at my dad after having a meeting with Coach Meyer, and just his passion and his energy was just so infectious. And I remember looking at my dad. I was like, Dad, I'm home. Like, this is where I want to be. This is the place I want to call home. And obviously for him, even though I'd already committed to Notre Dame, it was a difficult decision because I'd be moving all the way across the country. But just after that weekend, after getting to know Coach Meyer and his coaching staff and getting to know that campus, he agreed with me that it was just the right fit. And it took a little while in my career to kind of get going. But, man, every day I look back, I even talk to my wife now, just so much of who I am now. And is a big part of Florida, a big part of that experience that I had, and a big part of, Coach Meyer and his coaching staff, raising me from being an 18-year-old boy and turning me into a grown man when I left campus there.
Yeah, it's interesting. As you mentioned, you never saw the crowd, the atmosphere of what the Swamp and SEC football is all about, because you came to visit after the season was over.
Right.
What was it like for you being a guy? I mean, obviously, OU, Texas, some of those games are big, but I don't know what kind of college games you had been to in your lifetime. But what was it like for you, your first ever SEC game, just the atmosphere, the intensity, what it was like to play in the SEC?
Oh, man, it was something else. I'd gone to the spring game as like an official visit, and I thought I saw what was going to be what I was stepping into. I mean, I stepped in there, and there was probably 55,000, 70,000 at a spring game, and I'm looking around like, what are you talking about here? 50,000 people at a spring game, and they were loud, they were passionate, they knew the player's name, they knew down situations, they knew down the distance. I mean, they were tuned in, they were plugged in, they knew their football, and so it gave you kind of a precursor, a little bit of an idea of what to expect. But man, I mean, I remember our first game was against Wyoming. It was Urban's first game. Like I said, there was so much excitement. So there's a little bit of there's a few things at play there. Like I said, Urban's first game. our first game in the Swamp, home opener, a bunch of things going on, a bunch of things to play. I remember running out of that tunnel for the first time and hearing the sound they make when the Gators in the Swamp, and the crowd starts getting on their feet and the band starts going. And I mean, it was just an unreal feeling. I mean, I'll never forget just the goosebumps and just the energy and the passion that just kind of just takes over. I mean, it's unexplainable. And then the first SEC game, it was just, it took it to a different level. I was redshirted that year, but I just remember being on the sidelines, and they let you dress out even if you're redshirted, and just feeling the passion and feeling the energy that comes from that stands. And yeah, I've been to some OU Texas games, and I've been to some Big 12 games, and they're great. I'm not trying to downplay anything that they can do, but there's nothing like SEC football. There's nothing like the fans and the passion that the SEC fans bring each and every single Saturday, and specifically in the Swamp. I mean, I think 2 years before I played there was an NCAA football game where they'd rated the Swamp the number one place to play. And so I had known that. I'd played the video game. I had those expectations, but just walking out into the stadium and seeing it for the first time, it's like, man, that video game wasn't lying. This place is real, and it gives a whole different type of home field advantage for us. And it was, even still to this day, I mean, there's nothing like the Swamp. I've played in many NFL stadiums. I've played in tons of college football stadiums. I've played in state championship games. I've played in Texas high school football is one of the biggest high school football states in the country. And still to this day, there's nothing like the Swamp. And I know I'm a little biased, but there's been players I've played with in the NFL who, will come up to me and they played at Alabama or Ole Miss or Auburn or, a smaller school even. They come to me and they're like, man, I love playing in the Swamp. Every time we look at our schedule, we get a chance to see that we're going to Florida, we'd circle it and be like, man, I can't wait to go see what the Swamp is all about, because the reputation just precedes it. And it's, there's not a lot of times in life where you have a reputation for something and it lives up to that reputation. And the Swamp is one of those things where it just has that reputation, it has that aura about it. And then anytime people step into it, they get to see exactly what they were told all about it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We're speaking with David Nelson on the Titan More Hotline. You can follow him on Twitter at DavidNelson86. We got a question here from Buddy on the Facebook Live, brought to you by Meldon Law, where you matter most. He wants me to ask David about your decision to jump in on special teams and talking to Coach Meyer about contributing more.
Yeah. I think that was and I talked a little bit about it a minute ago, how it just kind of, it grew from a boy to a man during my time there. I think that was a pivotal point, just a turning point in my life. First couple of years there, I kind of, I was a 4 or 5 recruit. I thought I had all the answers. I thought I was going to come in and catch special teams and all the stuff that Coach Meyer and these guys were preaching and trying to shove down our throats. I just wasn't buying into. I just wasn't. In my brother cat into all the fake recruiters and all the fake people that told me in high school how good I was and all this stuff, and I just wasn't ready to buy in. I wasn't ready to kind of leave behind that idea that I had of myself and what I wanted to accomplish while I was in Florida. And I was just hard-headed and stubborn. And it wasn't until after the Ole Miss game in 2008, our national championship season, when we had gotten beat by Ole Miss, and it was the whole Tebow promise game. But I remember walking out the field, man, and I had we play in a grass stadium. We wear white jerseys. It's easy for you to get grass stains on your jersey, even if you play one play. So when you're walking off the field and you don't have any grass stains, you don't have anything on your jersey, it's pretty obvious that you didn't play it down. And I remember walking out the field. I mean, this was my junior year, and we were 3 games into the season, and I didn't play one snap. And I walk into the locker room, and I see guys like Lewis Murphy and Brendan Spikes and Carlos Dunlap and Tebow and Percy and Chris Rainey, and guys who I've been there for 4 years at that point. I knew like my brothers, and we had bled together. We had sweat together. We had cried together. We'd laughed together. And I'm walking into the locker room. I'm seeing my brothers and my teammates crying, and I'm seeing them hurt. I'm seeing them defeated, and I'm seeing them. They laid everything out in the field, and here I am walking in with barely any sweat dripping and barely anything on my jersey to show for it. And I just felt helpless. And I felt like I had let my teammates down. I felt like there was a point in my life there that I just needed to make a conscious decision to say, you know what, it's about the team. It's about these guys. It's about this program. It's about what Coach Meyer's been telling me. It's about, do I really want to become the man that I want to be? Do I really want to leave this program without having anything to show for it? And so I made a decision that night, like, you know what, I may never catch a pass. I may never catch a touchdown. This way may not look the way that I expected it to look. But man, I'm going to go and I'm going to do everything I can, whether it be on special teams, whether it be on defense, whether it be bringing water out to the guys. I'm going to contribute. I'm going to be a part of the solution, not a part of the problem. And so that next morning, I walked into Coach Meyer's office, and I had never done that before. I'm not that guy. I'm a yes sir, no sir. I do what I'm told. I'm not going to walk into a coach's office and demand things like that. This is not who I am. But for whatever reason that morning, and a lot of it was kind of motivated by Tim's speech after the game of, you'll never see a team play harder. You know, if our starting quarterback's going to step out in national TV into the world and say that, then as somebody who's his receiver, somebody that's his teammate, you know, I want him to know that I had his back. And so I walked into Coach Meyer's office and I told him straight up, like, Coach, I'm a junior here. I was a 5-star recruit. I haven't played it down. That's my fault. I need to apologize to you. I want to apologize to our team for just being selfish and being, you know, part of the problem. Whatever you need me to do now, whether it be on special teams, punt block, kickoff return, I just want to play. I just want to be on the field. I want to be out there with my brothers and contributing to the team on the field. And so he looked at me and he's like, man, that's what I've been waiting for 3 years. That's all I needed from you. So the next day he put me on punt return. I played on punt return that weekend. The next week I was on punt return, punt, kickoff. And the following week, I think Percy had sprained his ankle. And it just worked out. It just happened to work out to where I was plugged into his position. And from there on, man, my career just took off. And it was a conscious decision just to stop being selfish, to stop putting myself first, and to really buy into what Coach Meyer and the team is doing.
That's an awesome story, man. At Chris Doering Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doering Mortgage today at 352-244-0840. We're speaking with David Nelson on the Titan Tomorrow hotline. David, you were part of both. I mean, good gracious, dude, you got 2 national championships. I mean, people would die for one or just to even play for one. Obviously, you were more involved in the 08 team, but you know, people always ask me, because I've seen all 3 national championship teams, the 96, 06, and 08. Which one do you think between 06 and 08 was the best team?
If you're going to ask me, and I may get in some trouble with this, some of those old heads that I've played with, if you're going to ask me just based on talent, I mean, I think just the numbers speak for itself, the 08 team, and with the guys that we put into the league, with the guys who are still in the league, just an overall talent perspective, I think our 08 team, but you're not going to find a better team than the 06 team. I mean, just well-balanced, just with some of the guys, the character on that team, the way that we did it. I mean, losing to Auburn and blocking that punt against South Carolina and going down the opening kickoff against Ohio State. I mean, I wouldn't say it was the prettiest team, but man, they got the job done. And it was just a group of guys who, most of it were led by a group of seniors and juniors who were part of the old regime. I mean, this is only year 2 now. I mean, Coach Meyer had come in and kind of changed the culture a little bit and had implemented the things that he wanted to do. But still, I mean, 2 years in, it's difficult to do that with some of the old players that still have some of that mindset and the old mentality of the old regime. And to be able to kind of block all that out and really buy into what Coach Meyer was doing. And, you know, I was there from day one when Coach Meyer first walked in, and I had to, you know, let go of a few players. And we went through some really, really, really tough times early on when he was there, and to see how quickly that team was able to kind of turn it around from where it was and then to go to the national championship. And with that defense that we have with Jarvis Moss and Seiler and those guys, I mean, it was just different. I mean, our team, we won it with a bunch of juniors and sophomores. It was a younger, flashier team that put up a lot of points and was laying people out on the defensive side of the ball. But that 06 team, man, it was just a bunch of team players, and it was really special to watch. It was really great for a lot of our young guys like Percy and Brendan Spikes, who didn't have an active role, but, you know, contributed pretty heavily to be able to be a part of that and see what it was like to really have team success when you can couple that with individual success. So our 08 team, I think, was special. It was magical. We had the Heisman Trophy winner. We had all kinds. We have a couple of Hall of Fame players that are still playing in the NFL now. So I think talent-wise, our 08 team was definitely better, but our 06 team was tough to beat because of how close they were and how tough they were as a team.
Yeah. When you look back at your Gator career, I think I know the answer to this, but I'm curious if I'm right or not. What's the one moment that stands out in David Nelson's memory most?
Yeah, I think a lot of people will automatically go to the national championship game, which, I mean, why not? I mean, catching the jump pass in a national championship to seal the game, I mean, that's what you play for, right? I mean, as a kid, you're running in the front yard, you're throwing the ball to yourself, and you're imagining, you know, from being from Dallas, I was imagining I was Troy Aikman throwing to Michael Irvin. It was 3rd down at the 10-yard line, and it's a fade route to the back of the end zone. And the game is depending on it. And so my whole life I've been, and growing up in Texas and hating Oklahoma, I mean, it makes it a little better beating the Sooners. But I think really for me, what stands out the most was the game before that. It was the SEC championship game against Alabama. Just for me, the culmination of my career, everything that year I had worked for and I had kind of overcome, and I had kind of burst into the scene a little bit. And I remember Percy had sprained his ankle, and going into the SEC championship game against the #1 team in the nation, and your best player, Percy Harvin, is out. I just remember all eyes kind of looking at me, and it's like, who is this 6'5" skinny kid going to fill his shoes for one of the biggest games of his life? And I just remember the pressure and all kinds of media requests that week. No media ever wanted to talk to me before that game, and I just remember the question, like, how are you going to fill his shoes? Like, how are you going to replace Percy? And I just remember kept telling him, like, I can't replace Percy. We're different players. And it was really up until that point, I had played some meaningful minutes, but it wasn't in a game like that. I mean, that was the SEC championship game. We weren't guaranteed to go national championship unless we won that game. I think I had like 5 catches, but I remember scoring a touchdown. I remember after the game when the clock hit 0, and I remember a couple of my teammates walked over and gave me a hug and said, "You helped us do this." And like I said a little bit earlier about my experience walking after the Ole Miss game, and just literally 3 months later. I mean, this wasn't a couple of years later. This was 3 months, and so everything had completely just shifted. And I remember a few of my offensive linemen and receivers came up to me and just gave me a big hug and just told me they were proud of me and told me. It was just incredible to see the growth that I had made in just a short amount of time and how much I helped them win that game. And man, it was just, I think I have a picture of me kind of like a baby crying on the sidelines after it, but it was just a culmination of everything that I'd worked for, man. It's a culmination of what I'd hoped to achieve in my career there. And I finally was able to do that. Caught a touchdown. I caught a few meaningful passes in the game. And so, yeah, the Oklahoma game was great, but we wouldn't have been able to be in the Oklahoma game if we hadn't beat Alabama in the SEC championship game. And so, that to me was one of the most special games of my career because, Percy was out and a few guys in the team really, really in that moment was depending on me, and I had to step up. And it was a time where, in the front and the biggest stage. So definitely the Alabama game in 2008 for me.
That's what I figured. David, when you look back, so many people look at Urban, as he was your head coach, and people, look at football players and they associate with your head coach. But you spent pretty much your entire career with Billy Gonzalez. I mean, I don't think people realize how much you're with your position coach. Just talk a little bit about Billy, what he's meant to you.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, I think there's 2 people who you spend the most time with there. Your position coach and your strength coach. I think you really get to know both of those individuals in a different way. We spend through a course of even game week. I mean, I think they have the 20-hour rule, but every hour that you're there, you're with your position coach, whether it be in the meeting room or whether it be on the football field. So you were with him. And early on, like I said, I was a little stubborn. I was a little hard-headed. I came in thinking I had all the answers, like a lot of these 5- and 4-star, even some of these younger kids do. And if you know Billy, he's very much a tactician. He's very much a detail, fundamentals. He wants to spend a lot of time on the fundamental part of it. And it took me a little while to get used to that. He's a loud, aggressive coach. And he will get on you, whether it be not only just on the basketball, not only in the football field, but also in the classroom and different things like that. And so Billy gets up in your business. He knows everything that's going on. He knows all those guys' girlfriends' names. He knows all their class schedules. He is involved. And so he was like my dad, and since I was so far away. But it took a little while for Billy and I to really get to know each other, really get to vibe well together. But man, I love him. We talk every single year now. We talk, try to stay in touch as much as we can. I know he's busy, but man, there's no better wide receiver coach in the country. There's no better position coach, I think, in the country, just because he truly, you got guys like Dallas Baker and Andre Caldwell and Percy Harvin and all these guys, just like myself, who went on and played and had, great professional careers and have accomplished some great things. But they all, if you watch their Instagram or if you watch anything that they're posting on social media, they all are constantly talking about Coach Gonzalez. They're always talking about their relationship with him. It's great. He made me a great football player. And yeah, it's great. He made me a professional. And I'm incredibly grateful to him for that. But more than anything, he made me a better person. He made me a better man. And that's what, if I could talk to recruits or anything like that, it's like, that's what's important to me. That's what I think should be important to recruits. And man, I'm just so honored to be able to have I learned from some of the best. I mean, Urban's one of the best coaches of all time. Billy's one of the best position coaches in the country. And I was just fortunate enough to be able to go to campus and go to school where they had a lot of those coaches and pieces. I mean, Coach Mullen was my offensive coordinator. A lot of the other coordinators we had and position coaches went off to be head coaches and successful head coaches. So, it was just such an awesome time to be on campus there to play with some of the most talented people in the country, but also learn under the most talented coaches in the country.
So, David, let's jump to the NFL. You played 5 or 6 years in the league, but there's this one incident where you catch a touchdown pass against the Dallas Cowboys, and at the time your girlfriend was a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader, and you go and you hand the ball to her or do something. What was that all about?
I like the word incident. That's the word I use now. Now that I'm married, it was definitely an accident, incident, whatever you want to call it. But no, man, I like I said, I'm from Dallas. I grew up a huge Cowboys fan, and going to the Bills and being able to come back to Dallas and being able to play. And I mean, I had 80 family members in the game at that game, so it was just like a homecoming for me. And at the time, I was dating a girl who was cheering for the Cowboys, and how often do you have the opportunity to be able to play in your hometown, be able to play in front of your girlfriend at the time, and actually catch a touchdown in that game? And so it kind of all just came. I remember the whole week people were asking me, like, what are you going to do? Are you going to propose? Are you going to do all this kind of stuff? And, that's not who I am. I'm not a very flashy guy. I don't celebrate when I score. It's just not my personality. It's not in my DNA. But just at that time, I didn't know the cameras would be following me. I didn't know it'd be a whole deal. Just wanted to do something special in that moment. And unfortunately, now we're not even together. So it was all for nothing. But, hey, it's something that we still talk about. It's something that I guess will always be a part of my story.
Yeah. We got about 3 more minutes here with you, David. I really appreciate you taking the time today. As you mentioned, you played for Coach Mullen when you were here before. Just talk a little bit from afar out in Texas, what you've seen Dan Mullen do in his 2 years here. I mean, we've won 21 games in 2 years, 2 major bowl wins. Just the future of the program under Dan Mullen.
Yeah, I think I saw everything I needed to see, and I think it was his first year we were playing Georgia. And I remember there was it was a 1st and goal at the 1-yard line. And I remember I think a couple of penalties had even happened. And I think it was like a 6-down situation at the 1-yard line. And I remember them making the goal line stand. I remember, I think I tweeted something out at that point, but it was like, that is everything I need to see about what Coach Mullen is bringing to the table. Just that relentless effort, that refusing to quit. And there's a lot of it what Coach Meyer established with us over when I was at Florida. I'm hearing a lot of the same verbiage. I'm hearing a lot of the same lingo, relentless energy, 4 to 6 seconds, those kind of things. And that was the energy and the passion and the intensity that we brought, that we established when we were, same way you guys did in the 90s, that we had established when we were playing there. And it was really disheartening to see, when we left, kind of a lot of that had kind of faded, and a lot of that had kind of left the program. A lot of that just edge that flashiness and that toughness and that energy that we had left kind of just disintegrated over a few years with the different regimes coming in. And it was really nice to kind of see Mullen come in and reestablish that and get that back to where it was. And, you're seeing guys play hard. You're seeing guys play to the whistle. You're seeing guys in the 4th quarter take over. They're never out of games. They're never out coached. They're never mismatched. Coming in, there's never a schematic disadvantage. And that's just something that, for a little while we kind of were experiencing. But I'm excited what he's doing. I mean, he's excited. He's bringing some energy. He's recruiting his tail off. He's bringing some young, talented players. But at the same time, they're getting results. And so I'm looking at the schedule, man. I'm thinking 9-1, 10-0. I'm hoping we can get a full college football season in, but I'm really excited what he can do now, year 3. Really starting to get some pieces together. These guys are really buying in. He's seen some success that he can piggyback off of. And man, I'm excited for this year. I'm excited for what he's doing. I'm excited for the future of Florida football.
Before we let you go, let the Gator Nation know what David Nelson is up to these days.
My wife and I, we had 2 kids, 2 babies, which I'm surprised they're actually not making any noise right now. They're being really good for you. So that's a treat. But we have 2 kids, and my wife and I started a clothing business about 1.5 years ago. It's doing really well. And now that's between the babies, the pandemic, and this whole business that we're running, it's keeping us very, very, very busy.
Is it okay if you tell us what the clothing business is? We can promote it on the show?
Yeah, it's called shoptallulah.com. It's a women's clothing boutique. It's all online, e-commerce. Check it out. My wife's the one who buys. I try to stay away from the clothes selection. I run the business side of it, and she buys and sells the clothes. And so we have a a nice little partnership, and it's really taken off for the past few months, and so we're trying our best not to mess this thing up.
Well, good stuff, man. We appreciate you taking the time this morning, joining the show. Stay safe out there, and we'll talk to you soon, David.
I appreciate it, man. Go Gators.
Yep, that's David Nelson, a two-time national champ. Join us on the Titan MR hotline. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. We're going to have Coach Carl Franks, former longtime assistant of Coach Spurrier, joining the program, along with our good friend, Buddy Martin. Make sure you follow us, like us. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. We didn't get a chance to get to our This Day in Sports, but it's always brought to you by the Best Restoration. We had a lot of sports I wanted to talk to you about that happened over the weekend. We'll get to that tomorrow with Buddy. But be safe out there, folks. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. We'll see you later. Take care.